today we are going to be talking about balancing life, family, and love.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what we're going to be talking about today, balancing. So you want me to start, or do you want to start talking about it? You want me to start?
You do all the talking.
Yeah. I do all the talking anyway?
Yes.
I let him talk too. When you want to talk, he just don't say very much.
Oh, I'm the mister. She didn't introduce us at all.
I'm sorry. I'm me and just the mister. Me and the mister. And then there's +2 around here somewhere. So, we're going to talk today about balance, right? So balance is so important, not just in marriage, but in life as well. So when I think about balance, I think about something that functions well and something that's able to stay afloat and something that doesn't turn over in the midst of everything that's going on. What do you think about when you think about balance?
When I think about balance, there's a couple of things I think you have to get situated. Balance, some people when they think about balance, they think you have a certain amount of time, specific time, equally given to each one of those: life, love, family. That's not true. If you're looking at that as part of balance, I think you are setting up for failure. So I think balance is giving the appropriate time to each one of the sections and not equal time.
He's so smart. That's why I married him, because he's so smart.
She like my body too.
That's right, it is, because most people, it's impossible to be able to give 100% to everything. So you have to be able to find that appropriate balance. Like I think about now in our life, I think about as you grow, balance changes, and what you have to do for balance changes. Like in this season of our life, we have 2 really busy children that keep signing themselves up for things. So we spend a lot of time going and doing things with them and being able to balance all the things that they have, as well as being able to balance what we have to do as well, which causes us to have to change up some things sometimes. And sometimes I feel like the balance may be like this sometimes, but you still have to do what you do in order to find that balance that you need. So, whether you have to run this place or that place, and then you still have to find time for each other in the midst of that as well. Would you say so?
I would say so.
Say so?
And something else too. But also saying so.
We got something to say. I thought you said you weren't going to talk.
I did not say that. I said you were talking first.
Oh, okay.
So with balance, a great point. You said sometimes the balance shifts. I think sometimes what you focus on in life have to shift to maintain that balance. As far as when the kids are younger, sometimes the time is a little more on the kids versus the job versus you have to always work on a relationship. And I think one of the key components to maintaining that balance, whether it's shifting whichever way it shifts, is communication.
Absolutely, I'd agree. You got to talk about it.
You got to talk about it.
I can't talk all the time. You got to talk too.
Sometimes.
You gonna talk just sometimes, not all the time.
Yes.
Not talking is a form of communication.
It is, but we're talking about balance. This is the episode.
That's another episode. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, and when you're dealing with a spouse that always squirrels, that's part of balance too. You have to know each other. You have to know each other's strengths and weaknesses, and that's part of the relationship piece when it comes to balance.
I would totally agree. So, for those of you that are out there that are struggling with balance and you just don't know what to do and you can't find your way, one piece of advice that I would give to you is to know that you cannot do everything. We all have the same 24 hours in a day. Just accomplish the things that you can based on priority. And then I'm learning, you have to learn to say no. You can't do it all. Will some things go neglected at time? Yes. Will the laundry always be done? Here, most of the time it's done, but it's not folded. And there's like 5 or 6 baskets full of washed clothes, but nobody's put it away. So you can't get it all done. Will sometimes the floor go unvacuumed? Absolutely. Will you have to fix sandwiches for dinner instead of making this warm, hot meal sometimes? Those are the things that you may have to do in order to find balance. But find the balance that you need and find what works for your household and work that thing.
Yep, that's the key. You got to find out what works well for your household. With balance, with anything, with life, with love, with the relationships, you have to find out what works best for you and your family. All rules do not apply. It's great to read, but it's also better to communicate with your spouse as far as the needs when you're talking about balance.
You're exactly right. Just because somebody wrote a book about it doesn't mean they were great at it.
It doesn't mean that they were applying what was in the book.
That too.
But we're applying this stuff.
I've been thinking about you.
Oh my gosh. When things
That never happens. Sorry, I'm just joking.
Didn't get out. Well, when things get out of balance, I feel like everything becomes out of whack. When things are out of balance, you find that everything goes lacking, not just some things, but like everything becomes lacking, and it can actually cause issues on a relationship. He was talking about relationship and communication, but when things are out of balance, then you tend not to communicate, and it tends to not only affect you and your spouse, but your children and the people around you, because when things are out of balance, you tend to be mad about a lot of different things, and because most of the time when it's out of balance, you can't control it. So you become mad, he becomes mad, the kids become mad, nobody ate anything for dinner, somebody forgot to pick up Megan, Devin is running down the street. We don't know what's going on when things are out of balance. So that's when you have to refocus and put things back in perspective, being able to control the controllable and being able to do what it is you need to do. Have things gotten out of balance before?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Things have gotten out of balance. Were we able to manage and get back on track? Absolutely.
I've been thinking about you. Wondering who's stuck in you.
That's a good question. Oftentimes when things are out of balance, we notice it actually a little bit too late. I won't say too late. You notice it late when things are rampant and going out of balance. I think one way to get it back on track is to really take a time out. Take a time out, assess what's really going on, assess what needs to be done in the particular areas of life to bring that balance back in. Maybe the kids are signed up for too many sports. Hey, stop one of the sports. You have to tell them and talk to them. Maybe I have too many commitments on the job. And some of those commitments, as being a professional, some commitments when we are trying to climb the ladder of success, some commitments we take on that we don't have to. So you really have to take that hard look as far as your professional career as well. But I think you take a time out, reassess, and reorganize your time, the way that you actually distribute your time.
And know that the roles in the house can definitely change, and you can get help with your roles. There are so many times that we've been raised traditionalistically, and we feel like the woman has to do the laundry, the woman has to do the cooking, she has to do the cleaning. In order to maintain balance, then you have to share some of those responsibilities in order to be able to get things done. And that's another way to get on track, because sometimes when things are out of balance, it's not necessarily both people. Sometimes it can be that one person is just totally overwhelmed and needs help. So that's when the other person or the other people in the house have to step up and be able to help to get things back on balance, because things have become overwhelming for one person.
And that's where the love comes in again. Love and communication. Know your partner as much as you can. Even watch them when they don't tell you or verbally convey what you think they should convey, and then get it back in balance.
I've been thinking about you. Wondering who's stuck in you.
When you have two people who are, we'll say professionals, and each are trying to concentrate on their different jobs, without a doubt, if both people are going in different directions, there's always going to be a strain. So I think, me being in the military, travel a lot of deployments, I think when you take one person out of the equation, when you're usually typically used to four, I think things can become a little unbalanced. Especially, and it's more difficult on the families, because now everyone who remains home have to pick up a whole lot of more slack of the one being gone. So that's what I think of as a particular unbalance, which you handle extremely well each time. That's what I think of, kind of.
Well, and then things have to things have to get back on balance when the person returns to the home too. From a military perspective, is that even when they come back in, sometimes that
there's a way to do it.
Yeah, but not just that there's a way to do it, but they're used to being away and kind of doing their own thing, and then we're used to doing our own thing over here. So then you got to bring the two back together in order to make it one again, I guess you could say, because it's been separated and divided. So this doesn't just happen when people, like, we can relate to it from being in two different households or deployments and things like that. But do you realize that can happen right with two people living in the same house? That that they're separated and they don't, these issues are having, and they don't even realize that it's happening. And a lot of that is just due to the lack of communication and knowing your spouse and seeing what's going on around them and doing something right away and not waiting until it's gotten so out of hand and everybody's mad and talking about it, to make sure that you can work through that before it gets too bad, because there's a such thing as letting it get too out of control before you pull it back in, and it can be too late.
I've been thinking about you. Wondering who's stuck in you.
I think it happens all the time, and sometimes I don't think it happens intentionally.
Yeah, it's naturally.
It just happens because, as we were talking earlier, we talked about like in this stage in our life, having, you know, at the age of the kids and all the different things that they have going on, it's easy to lose focus on each other, making sure that everything else is balanced and in control. One thing that helps with that is doing date nights and going out and doing things together. We try to do that pretty often, you know, even if it's a lunch date where you go and have lunch and sit down and talk and see what's going on with one another, because you'll forget about that. You know, sometimes you got to sit at the wrestling meet and just talk to each other, or sit at the basketball game and say, what you been doing? Just whenever you can work it in to be able to talk to one another and notice the change in the spouse or the partner when things are going on and you don't, you can feel the tug or the nudge or whatever when you know things are out of balance based on the way they're acting and you haven't focused enough on the relationship.
And I think a key aspect in that is you have to be intentional about relationship versus just life happening. You have to be intentional about your date nights. You have to be intentional about spending time with your spouse, your significant other, to get that balance back. Again, it's always taking the time, assess, and move forward.
I've been thinking about you. Wondering who's stuck in you.
I would tell them to stop for a moment and sit down and prioritize. Think about the things that have to get done and think about the things that don't have to get done, and put those things down in order and do it together, not separate. Do it together so that you two can decide, this is how we get balance in our lives. These are the things that we must do on a daily, a weekly, a monthly basis. These are the things that we can do without, but if we have time, we can incorporate those things and find out what's the most important thing to the other person in your life, and share with them what the important thing is in your life, so that you don't, because there comes times where you want to focus on them, but you also want them to focus on you, so that you can make sure that each one of your needs are being met.
Yep, and I put it in terms of kind of like how we set a budget for our money. I think to get back on track, you need to set a budget for your time. It's exactly what Aisha just said. You have to allocate your time to different things, to those important things. The things that are not important, hey, just throw them out, do away with them until there's a better time. And I think one key, I'll always go back to communication. Whenever you're inside your own household, I got it. Advice is always great coming from any outside sources, but the most important advice you can take is that which your spouse is telling you to deal with and what's important at the time. Budget your time. Allocate your time. One of them.
Until next time, I'm still me.
About
I'm
you.
still the mister.
Wondering who's stuck in you.
Hi, it's me.
And the mister.
Join us here on YouTube at least once a month for a new episode. Or guess what? You can follow the Before Black Lives Matter tour and catch us in person. Also, we'd love to know what other topics would you like to hear on an episode, because we'd love to discuss something that you'd like to know more about.